Have you listened to an ambient soundtrack before and it instantly sets that tone of seriousness and drama? Well, today I want to go over how I would approach that in this episode. Hi, this is Joshua Sohn from Composing Secrets. I've always had a huge admiration for film scores that can say a lot with very little. And I'm talking about from films such as The Fountain, Inception, Interstellar, and Blade Runner. So I want to go over the movie that I scored. It's a very short experimental music video almost, and it's called Metamorphoses. You'll be able to see the type of sounds that I've used and the composition techniques to make this style of music possible. Let's get started. Okay, this is a track called Metamorphosis. It is a very ambient cinematic score with some solos from cello, pan flute, and violin. So without further ado, here's the track. Okay, thanks for listening. Now I will go over the approach and some techniques that will help you in your own ambient track. First off is think about your palette. It doesn't have to be this big in a sense. I mean, you can get by with the ambient track with only 1 to 4 tracks. However, something to keep in mind, if you are working with like a nice synthesizer track, I'll suggest working with more than one. That way you can actually bring out certain voicings in your chord. So like for instance, I think this one here is playing the same notes as in here, in the Dream World one. But the difference is that I really like certain voicing of that note, and so I wanted to bring it out more with a different instrument. Now, also the benefit of combining and layering your pads are that it just sounds bigger and fuller. So, for instance, here's my Dream World. I mean, it already sounds great, and it's kind of quiet, but when you start layering everything else, it sounds good. Una Corda, Lush Forest. Okay, great. And let me give you the instruments I'm using. So this is the Prism, using the New Morning Strings Snapshot. I have Other Pad, Slow Motion. That's also a Prism. This is actually a piano. And it's processed and it's using a snapshot called Netherworld. And this last one is called Lush Forest. I got this off of a website and it was only like $2 or $3. It was a great sounding pad. I think it's also from a real instrument that's processed. I think in this case it was a guitar. Okay, and these other ones up here are more melodic instruments or sound effects. Okay, so we want to be able to pick a nice palette, something that is dark perhaps, or things that will fill and complement each other up in a way that it really fills up that space. In addition, strings are great. If you have a nice string library, layer that in with your synthesizers or vice versa. And then the next thing is woodwinds. Certain woodwinds blend really well, such as bassoon with cello. You can double up the clarinet with maybe the viola or violin 2, flute of course with violin 1, things like that. I also have a harp, so you don't have to go crazy, but I'm just giving you some ideas here. Now, I also include marimba. This is kind of interesting. Alright, yeah, so that it's just a hint of a little bit of a constant attack of notes that are happening, so it gives it a little more of a frantic, agitated feel. I think I'm doing that here with tremolo too. Yeah, so certain sounds combine well with each other, and know how they work, and that's just trial and error. Okay, so that's the first point, is your palette. In addition to the palette itself, let's talk about pads in general. So in order to create an ambient feel, it's all about pads. To me, it's about trying to find pads that really work well with each other. If it's not a pad, maybe it's certain sounds that just really have a long release time, such as a kick that just booms. Let me find one for you. Right? Okay, so I mean, if it doesn't have to be pads necessarily, it can be also certain percussion sounds or delays, reverbs, things like that. So over here on my dream world, you'll notice that this has a semi long attack and then it has a pretty long release. And in addition to that, if you are having long sounds or long swelled or trailing off sounds, you have to know how to make that work well. So you are going to be taking your time on these. So in this case, these notes are being played 1 to 2 measures at a time. You know, you're not going to be able to pull off quarter notes with pads as well. So I think that's something to think about, is if ambience will take time. That actually goes over to my next point, which is tempo. Ambient tracks are generally slower. All right, I'm saying generally because there are faster tracks that you know, maybe it's playing 4 measures or 8 measures at a time, and that's underneath the solo instrument. So it depends on the context, but generally speaking, ambient tracks are very slow. Now, the chord qualities, if you're writing the track itself, you probably are going to go and stick with minor keys. So mine is in A minor. Other than that, let's see here. Other tips. Let's talk about how you can make your synthesizers breathe. Okay, so for instance, I'm gonna layer these all together. Okay. Now what I'm doing is I actually linked up the mod wheel to the volume. Let me give you a good example of that. So if you see here on my contact player, I'm moving my mod wheel, or in this case CC11 I actually assigned it to, and that will control the volume knob. And I've done that with each synthesizer. Okay. And it behaves in a way like you would with your string library. So I would do that right away, okay, and get those to breathe. Alright, here's another section just to put everything I just talked about into context. Here's the section without the melody. So here what I've heard or what I've felt is that it almost sounds like air. So ambience is really, I mean, it's just a room sound, right? So what you're creating ambience in a film score or, you know, any musical track is that it's almost like it's in the air. It's just in the background. Alright, so those are some simple approaches to make an ambient space for your track. Now there are many other ways to go about this. I encourage you to listen to soundtracks from Blade Runner 2049, Alien, The Fountain, and Interstellar to really get a sense of what can be possible. Alright, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe as I'll be creating more videos on the process of music writing and production. If you have any questions, please comment below. See ya.